My predictions? I'm still going to want Joe Barry fired after this week. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, a podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. We're getting down to the end, folks. Grossi, and today we're going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in the Week 16 lineup. Last week, I struggled. I went 9-7, which is giving me a 140-85 record on the season, so not too shabby. However, we still have the reigning, defending, undisputed number one in the Pick'em League, and that is ESPN fan with 156 correct and 68 wrong. So a big shout out and congratulations to you, and there are a lot of folks right on their tail, so we'll see who's going to bring home the gold. Metaphorically, I'm sorry, I don't have gold to give you. And folks, we only have 2 Thursday games left, so enjoy them while you got them. First, you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the LA Rams. Both these teams coming away with a big win. The Saints dominating the New York Giants, and unfortunately, Tommy DeVito got sacked 7 times, or otherwise known as the thing that Joe Barry's defense couldn't do. They're going to be taking on the LA Rams, who were able to take down the Washington Commanders. And the Rams, oh boy, they are not only currently in the postseason, though they haven't clinched a spot yet, but they are getting closer and closer to a Matthew Stafford reunion in the wild card round, going against the Detroit Lions.
Hey! Where are you going? I'm going back.
And oh, will that be spicy. And this game, I think, is going to be pretty solid. The Saints, they're just inconsistent. One week, their offense and defense will look great. The next week, their offense is not going to look good. And I'm curious to see which Saints team is going to show up against the Rams, because the Rams, their run game, phenomenal. Of course, they have all the receiving threats. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, even Tutu Atwell every now and then. Matthew Stafford has been playing well. The defense is playing pretty solid. And I think this is going to be ultimately a close game. I am going to go with the LA Rams here because even though the Saints defense is good, I think it's going to have a tough time slowing down Matthew Stafford. And I think the Rams are going to be able to handle whatever the Saints offense is going to throw at them. And Saints fans, you'll be that much closer to a new QB in the draft. So Rams, they get the win on Thursday night. Then you have an AFC North showdown between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bengals getting an overtime win with Jake Browning, the Viking killer, in an exciting game in which it was looking bad. Jake Browning was not looking good, but Nick Mullins, he was like, watch this, hold my beer, and yeah, I'm just going to throw some interceptions. Getting the win here, and the Bengals, they are surging right now as they are looking to capture a playoff spot in a very crowded AFC playoff picture. Meanwhile, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers losing to the Indianapolis Colts. Mitch Trubisky has been benched. Mason Rudolph is going to start this game. And for Steelers fans, I'm just so sorry for those who are giving up their Saturday to watch that offense.
Have you had enough pain?
Never!
But yeah, the Steelers' offense is just abysmal right now. They need Kenny Pickett back in the worst way. And while their defense is still good, this is going to be an ugly, ugly game. Why? Because it's an AFC North game. So I imagine this is going to be like a 9-3 game. I do have the Cincinnati Bengals getting the win here. I do think the Steelers are going to put up a fight. I don't know if Mason Rudolph is going to be that much of an improvement over Mitch Trubisky, but I don't know how it could get much worse. But Bengals, they're surging. They get the win, and the kitty continues to go meow. Then you got a Saturday night game between the Buffalo Bills and the LA Chargers. And this is just a tale of 2 completely different teams, huh? The Buffalo Bills smoking the Dallas Cowboys and obliterating them with James Cook on the ground through the air. Josh Allen didn't have to do pretty much anything. And the Bills, they are looking to capture a playoff spot. And right now, I don't know what team in the AFC is going to stop them. They're going to be taking on the LA Chargers, and yeah, you had 63 points scored on you. But Chargers fans on Friday looking at Brandon Staley.
Time's up.
Yeah, Thursday was really, really bad, but Friday was much, much better. Firing your GM, firing your head coach, and I know Chargers fans are just praying that whoever they bring in as a head coach or a GM next is going to work out a little bit better. And this game, I think it's going to be all Buffalo Bills. This is going to be streaming exclusively on Peacock, which I'm not a huge fan of because it just makes it harder for fans to watch, but that's neither here nor there because Chargers fans, you may be missing out on a massacre in case you don't have Peacock, because I got the Bills getting a big win here and continuing their playoff aspirations. Following that, you got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Colts, as we talked about, coming away with a big win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there's just so much excitement around Indianapolis right now because this is what this team is doing without Anthony Richardson, without Jonathan Taylor, and they're still getting it done. And it looks like they could potentially even win the division. It might come down to that Week 18 game against the Texans. They're going to be taking on the Atlanta Falcons, and oh boy, Falcons, you lost to the Panthers. I'm so sorry. And I know Falcons fans are looking at Arthur Smith, but you're also looking at Desmond Ridder losing a must-win game against the Panthers.
Buddy, he's killing me.
Quick thinking yesterday with that special talents thing.
I feel bad for the guy. I just hope he doesn't get wise.
Well, if he hasn't figured out he's a human by now, I don't think he ever will.
Yeah, I hope he's figured out that he is not going to be their starter next year because he ain't going to be their starter this week because Taylor Heineke will be getting the start. And the Falcons, it's just all about potential. And they have so much of it. And I think that it's just not being utilized right now. And I just don't know what the fix is besides firing Arthur Smith and releasing Desmond Ridder. But yeah, you still have the rest of the season to go through. I can't imagine it's going to be very fun. I do have the Colts getting the win here and hopefully holding on to their playoff spot. But yeah, Falcons fans, it's almost over. Then you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks coming away with the miraculous win against the Philadelphia Eagles at home on Monday Night Football. Pete Carroll keeping that undefeated streak against the Eagles alive. And I imagine this is how Drew Lock is going to be showing up to the facility this week. And he earned it. Drew Lock, man, it's just such a great story. His post game was just so heartfelt. And you gotta just root for the guy. And Geno Smith just being that mentor veteran, I just love it all the way around. And I hate the Seattle Seahawks. They're gonna be taking on the Titans, who had a crushing defeat against the Houston Texans while the Titans were dressing up as the Houston Oilers. And that was just a tough game to watch. They were winning that game pretty much from the jump, and they just let it slip away and unfortunately couldn't get it done in overtime as well. And for the Titans, there's lots of questions going on. Is Will Levis the guy? Are we gonna be looking at Mike Vrabel? Though I do think you should keep Vrabel. But yeah, there potentially could be some changes made this offseason. Here, I think this is going to be a pretty competitive game because it is being played in Tennessee. But I do have the Seahawks getting the win here, keeping their slim playoff hopes alive. And even though it hurts the Packers, it's hard to not root for Drew Lock. Seahawks get the W. Then you have an NFC North showdown between the Detroit Lions and the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings. The Lions getting a huge win against the Denver Broncos on Saturday, and they were the only team to win in the entire NFC North last week. But their Lions defense finally got back on track. They're getting CJ Gardner-Johnson back as well. Their offense was looking really, really good. And if the Lions win this game against the Vikings, it will be their first NFC North title. So I know Lions fans have been waiting this for a while, so congratulations if it happens. And I do think it will because the Minnesota Vikings, as we talked about, blew that lead against the Cincinnati Bengals. Nick Mullins is going to be starting again against the Lions, and I'm going to be honest, I just have no faith in him whatsoever. And while that defense is very good, I just don't know how the Vikings are going to compete. It is being played in Minnesota, so you never know. It's a divisional game, but I got the Lions getting the win. And while the Vikings may hate the Lions, I imagine this is the Lions' response.
I know you don't really like me.
I don't dislike you. I nothing you.
Oh, thanks. That's special.
But yeah, congrats, Lions. Hopefully, we see you in the postseason. Then you got the Washington Commanders taking on the New Jersey Jets. Both these teams coming off a loss. The Commanders, who came off a bye and wishing they stayed there, losing to the LA Rams. And for Commanders fans, listen, Ron Rivera is going to be gone at the end of the year. There's going to be a whole new regime, maybe even a name change. And I imagine that fans just cannot wait for this season to be over, which it's coming soon enough. Meanwhile, they're going to be taking on the Jets. And listen, there was some excitement for a hot second there. It was like, oh, Aaron Rodgers could return, could make a playoff push.
And it's gone.
And yeah, then it was completely and totally gone because Aaron Rodgers go on the Pat McAfee show saying, I'm not at 100%. He's not going to be returning. But even more so, the Jets have been eliminated from postseason contention. And the Jets, they just did not have the kind of season that they wanted. Of course, 4 snaps in, losing their quarterback. That will do it to you. And I imagine they're going to be competing next year and going all in, trying to get to the dance. But yeah, this game I think is going to be low scoring. It's going to be ugly. I originally had the Commanders eking out a win, but I am going to go with the Jets and that defense. I think they'll be able to slow down whatever the Commanders offense is going to throw at them. So yeah, Jets, you get a win at MetLife, and both these teams are just waiting for next season. Following that, you got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Packers losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The defense absolutely did not show up. Joe Barry got torched, leaving all of the room for Baker Mayfield to just throw all over them. And while Jordan Love did look really good, the playoff hopes for the Packers are starting to dwindle a little bit. They have like a 90-something% chance to make it if they win out, but they got to win some football games. Meanwhile, speaking of winning football games, the Carolina Panthers, they won their football game against the Atlanta Falcons off a walk-off field goal, and they got to feel pretty good. And if they had a nickel for every single win they had this season,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
you got some change there. And with 50 cents, they could have bought a ticket to last week's game as nobody really showed up, which I can't blame them. The team is not good. It was raining. It was nasty. But I imagine there's going to be a lot of Packers fans here this week. And heck, Panthers fans, you might want to go to this game because Bryce Young is probably going to look the best he did all season going against that Joe Barry defense. And I think the Packers should win this football game. I'm going to pick the Packers to win this game. And listen, if they lose, oh, the salt and the screams, you will hear them from wherever you are listening. So yeah, Packers get the win for my sake, for the sake of all Packers fans everywhere. Please win. Please. Following that, you have an AFC matchup that is going to be full of playoff implications. You got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Houston Texans. Both these teams having comeback wins this past week. The Browns against the Bears, the Texans against the Titans. And Browns fans, I don't even know how you begin to describe how you're pulling off these wins.
Well, now, it's not ugly. It's just, it's unique.
But Joe Flacco throwing a bunch of interceptions, but then throwing some touchdowns. And I just have to respect the tenacity of the Cleveland Browns because basically their entire roster is on IR. I think it's 26% of their cap. Of course, Nick Chubb, they got no quarterback. Joe Flacco coming in, a new person's going on IR almost every single week, and they're still finding ways to win football games, which, man, I just wish Nick Chubb was still in there because then I think they'd have a good chance to potentially go to the big dance. But they're going to be taking on the Houston Texans, who are going to be looking to continue their win streak, and it's going to be tough. CJ Stroud, last time I heard, is still in concussion protocol, and I know the Texans are not going to want to rush him back because for the Texans, this season is already a win, and while it would be really nice for them to make the postseason, you can't put your franchise QB at risk. And here, while it is being played in Houston, I think the Browns' defense is just going to continue to be dominant, though the Texans' defense could give Joe Flacco some problems, and maybe they'll be able to squeak away a win, especially if CJ Stroud winds up playing. But I am going to go with Cleveland to get the win. They've been pulling them out of a hat. And here, I think they'll continue to do so. Browns win. Following that, you have the Battle of the Florida Man. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Jaguars losing a brutal game against the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. And I just got to say, Jaguars, maybe we don't play in primetime anymore because it hasn't worked out too well this season. Trevor Lawrence getting banged up again. You hate to see it, in concussion protocol, and you just have to worry about Trevor Lawrence. And I know the Jaguars haven't had the season that they wanted. Their defense has kind of been the consistent thing every week, but they haven't been looking good these past couple weeks. And that offense, it just seems like every week this season I'm saying, we'll just wait and see. They'll get it going. And a couple times they have this year, but yeah, it's not where they're supposed to be. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers, they were rolling last week in Lambeau. We talked about Baker Mayfield's perfect QBR, and they just torched the Packers. They could run the ball on them. They were just throwing to wide open receivers, and they are still the #1 team in the NFC South. And this game, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, I think the Bucs will continue to roll. Their team is very, very solid, even when they're benching guys like Devin White. And I think the offense right now is getting itself into a groove. So I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get the big win at home. And whoever wins, you may be the new king of Florida until the Dolphins come around. Then you have a potential tank bowl. You got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Chicago Bears. The Cardinals losing to the San Francisco 49ers, though they did hold their own for the first half of that game. And Cardinals, listen, they had a rough season. It started off going better than expected. Of course, he had that big win over the Cowboys. Kyler Murray did return, but I think there's just too many gaps on this team that they need to fill in the draft, and they will be looking to do so. And speaking of draft, Chicago Bears fans will be hoping the Packers can get a win over the Panthers so it doesn't screw up their #1 overall pick.
I swear to God, if you make me miss this one too, I will feed you to the lions myself.
But the Bears, as we talked about, choked away a game against the Cleveland Browns, almost had Darnell Mooney coming down with a Hail Mary reception that would have won the game, but unfortunately kicked into the arms of a defender. And yeah, that's just Chicago Bears football. And I got to give props to the Bears. Their defense is significantly better. Justin Fields hasn't been looking too bad either. And I think these last 3 games are really going to determine if they're going to keep him or not. But I do think that Chicago Bears fans have already kicked Luke Getsy out the door, though he is still remaining there, at least for the next 3 games. So yeah, this game, I think the Bears are going to get the win, being played in Chicago, the elements. I think Chicago's defense has definitely improved like we were talking about, so I think they'll be able to stop whatever the Cardinals throw at them. So yeah, Chicago, you get the win, and while you might not make the playoffs, at least you'll have your dignity. Then you have one of the potential best games of the week. You got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Miami Dolphins, and Cowboys, you got blown out by the Bills.
It was one of the worst performances I've seen in my life. I couldn't sleep last night because I felt this coming because we were walking around like we're the shit.
You got cooked. The Cowboys, after having a huge win against the Philadelphia Eagles, just looked terrible. Came out completely flat against the Buffalo Bills. And while they did clinch a playoff spot, they couldn't stop James Cook. They couldn't even move the ball on the Bills' defense. It was just a mess. They're going to be taking on the Miami Dolphins, who had a nice bounce-back win against the New York Jets, and they really needed that, especially after that loss against the Titans. And this game is going to be really interesting because both these teams have had narratives against them all year saying they can't win against good teams, and now they're going to be playing against one another in Miami. They have not done so well outside of their home stadium against winning teams. So I am going to go with the Dolphins here. I think it's going to be a very close game and either team could win. We'll see if Tyreek Hill also returns this week, and if so, that will be a huge boost for the Dolphins. So yeah, I got Miami getting the win. However, I think it will come down to the wire, and maybe we'll find out a little bit more about both these teams as we inch closer to the postseason. Then you got the New England Patriots taking on the Denver Broncos. The Patriots, another team keeping it competitive with the Chiefs in the first half before the Chiefs started to run away with that game. And for Patriots, listen, your defense is good. Bill Belichick, who knows if he's going to be around next season. The offense, yeah, it's not too great. We need a complete and total overhaul on that offense and are going to be in line to draft a new QB. They're going to be taking on the Denver Broncos, who had a rough outing against the Detroit Lions. Just did not look good. I know the refs weren't that great in that game, but yeah, it was ugly. And Sean Payton screaming at Russell Wilson, getting real sassy in that post-game press conference. And all I'm saying is Sean Payton should just embrace the trash talk, embrace the villain role, and roll up to Foxborough. They're not playing in Foxborough. And just walk in against the Patriots, look at Bill Belichick and say,
"Look how old you've become."
I don't know. I think that would just be pretty badass. This game, the Broncos should be able to win, though I do think the Patriots defense is going to give Russell Wilson a very tough time. I do have the Broncos getting the win at home, needed to keep their slim playoff chances alive. So yeah, Denver, you get the win. Patriots, you're that much closer to a franchise QB. Everybody wins, except the Patriots. Then we got our first of 3 Christmas Day games. You got the Vegas Raiders taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders doing Chargers fans a favor, scoring 63 points on them. And Mark Davis, I imagine he's still on that adrenaline high after scoring that many points.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning.
After scoring 0 against the Vikings, they scored 63, and that is just what the NFL is this year. Pure chaos. Are they going to do it again? Are they going to score 0 again this week? Nobody knows. But the Raiders, their defense is looking so good. On top of that, their offense was really clicking on Thursday night. Can that translate against Kansas City? That is going to be tough because the Chiefs, they have their win over the Patriots. Their defense looking good. Rashee Rice, Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming in and looking good for Isaiah Pacheco. Though I don't know how much Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get this week because Isaiah Pacheco is coming back, which I think will be a huge boost for that Chiefs offense. And being played in Arrowhead, I know the Raiders and Chiefs sometimes have really close games. I do have the Chiefs winning this game. Who knows though? It's a divisional matchup, so Raiders, maybe they could pull off something, but I got the Chiefs getting the win and solidifying their stance in the AFC West. And Raiders fans, if you lose this one, you'll always have Thursday. Then you got an NFC East matchup between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants, after defeating the Green Bay Packers in primetime, getting smoked by the New Orleans Saints, Tommy DeVito getting knocked around, and yeah, that was just a tough game to watch. And while the Giants had some playoff aspirations for a hot second, those have pretty much faded. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who now have lost 3 straight games, and I think everybody's looking at the Eagles and asking the same question. Are you okay?
No.
It doesn't look like it. And listen, perspective is still important. While they have lost 3 games, and that definitely is concerning, they are still going to make the playoffs. They do still have 10 wins. Now, they're kind of in the same boat as the Chiefs. I just don't know how well they're going to do in the postseason once they get there. They might be a one-and-done team. But the Eagles, being played in Philadelphia against a division rival, they will be playing against the Giants 2 out of the next 3 weeks, and I think they'll be able to get the win both times. So hopefully this is a nice bounce-back game for Philadelphia, because I have them getting the W. And then finally, the final Monday Night Football game of the regular season. It's the one that we've had circled and all been waiting for. You got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Ravens coming off a big primetime win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lamar Jackson looking great, and unfortunately Mitchell out for the season. They're going to rely on Gus the Bus Edwards the rest of the way, but that defense looking great. The offense is looking electrifying. Lamar Jackson making a case for being potential MVP. However, I don't think he'll be getting it this year because there's still the San Francisco 49ers, and you got CMC and Brock Purdy leading that MVP race.
It's just a nice feeling between you and your teammate. You might want to take a picture. This is a memory that'll last a lifetime.
But the 49ers knocking off the Cardinals, and even though they stuck around for a little bit, the 49ers then were just like, okay, we're done playing with our food. And they dominated that second half. CMC having a great game, Brock Purdy looking really good. And this is the game to see, can anybody stop a healthy San Francisco 49ers? And I cannot wait for this game. This is a potential Super Bowl preview, what we're going to see in February. Both quarterbacks are playing well. Both defenses are playing well. And I just think this is going to be a phenomenal showdown. If the Ravens defense can contain all those amazing skill players on the 49ers, I think the Ravens have a decent chance here. However, being played in Santa Clara, I think that's going to give the 49ers just enough of an edge to get this done. The 49ers right now are looking like the most complete team in the NFL, and I think they are going to get a very close win here against the Ravens. Though, I'm not going to count the Ravens out because they've been pretty consistent these past couple of weeks, and they show that they can get tough wins. Here, it's their toughest challenge yet of the season. I do have the 49ers getting the win, but either way, I just can't wait for this frickin' fracking game. But just let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning and losing this week? Let me know. You know, I saw me at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout out and thank you to all the YouTube and Patreon members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.